Unfortunately, once again, had a little bit of technical difficulty before starting this live stream. That's why I'm a little bit late. So I appreciate everyone hanging in there. I also want to say I see Harriet's in the room, which is great. I really want to just also wish all the women, all the ladies, a happy Mother's Day. You know, so I appreciate everyone showing up for this. But it already looks like I'm actually broadcasting this through Restream again, and it looks like I'm not getting the comments once again because I tried to pull up Harriet's comment and it's just not showing. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Great. So Harriet's here. I really appreciate everyone showing up. Let me just also pull up the live stream. So I want to make sure that I do get all the comments just in case I'm missing any. Yes, I see. Hey, Brian's here too. I see Brian's here, which is great. Unfortunately, Brian, your comment did not show up. I'm sorry about that. Also, Rose is here. Hey, good morning, Rose. I appreciate everyone showing up. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to have my phone right next to me, and I'll see your comments on my phone, but I might not be able to pull them into the live stream, unfortunately. So this is probably the last time I'm using Restream. See, just so you guys know, Restream is a software that lets me broadcast this live stream at multiple different platforms. So besides me being on YouTube now, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm in LinkedIn, I'm all over the place. So maybe the software's not working too well. Okay, well, let's get right to it. First of all, if you don't know who I am, my name is 𝘾𝙃𝙓𝙏. I've been a fitness trainer, gym owner for over 30 years. I've helped thousands of people, you know, lose weight and just get in top shape and just look and feel the absolute best. And this is kind of like an innovative live stream today because I'm going to be talking about a number of different things. Some of my favorite tools, like innovative tools that help you work out. One is called blood flow restriction training, which is really cool. There's a lot of science behind it. I'm going to go into it in great detail. And I even have some devices that I'm going to show you guys that I use that helps me do my blood flow restriction training. Great for rehab, great for injury. You can use light loads and get an incredible workout. We're also going to be talking about this walking backwards, this knees over toes guy. I've been walking backwards now for about 2 months, every single day for a minimum of 15 minutes. Sometimes I do it twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. And if you know, I know you've been following me, everyone here has been following me. I have a really bad knee from just a botched knee operation from years ago. And it's been helping me. It's really been helping me. So I'm going to talk about that. And then I'm going to go into, I know Brian asked a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to go into a whole bunch of pre-workout shakes. All my favorite pre-workout shakes. I want to go over I even have some examples of them here. I'm going to go over some of my favorite protein powders, some of my favorite nitric oxide enhancers, which helps you perform better when you're working out. Can also help you with blood pressure. That's an issue. Let's see. So Brian asked a question. Let's see. I was able to pull it up. Oh, cool, Brian. Let's see. What is that intermittent fasting where you eat less, works, and the zone diet where you eat every 2 hours? Okay, how is that intermittent fasting where you eat less, works, and the zone diet where you eat every 2 hours? Okay, you know, it's almost the exact opposite. Well, first of all, I would say, even though I love intermittent fasting, I still think that calories, is one of the main reasons why intermittent fasting works so well. So let's say you ate the same exact amount of calories, same macros, protein, fats, and carbs, and you did it with multiple small meals a day, like eating every 2 hours, or you just gave yourself, say, an 8-hour eating window. In my opinion, and there is some science behind this, but not too much, because a recent study just came out of an intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating, saying that it doesn't work any better than calorie restriction over like a 12-month study. But actually, I read the study. This was from the New York Journal of Medicine, and the participants who followed the time-restricted eating, kind of like compared to just calorie restriction, like you're talking about, Brian, eating multiple meals a day, they did lose 4 more pounds, but the researchers felt that it was statistically insignificant because they only lost 4 more pounds over a 12-month period. But in my opinion, if you ate the same calories, same macros in a shorter eating window, say an 8-hour eating window, I think you will be healthier. I think your blood work will be better. I think you'll have better insulin sensitivity. See, the reason why that it became so popular to eat multiple meals a day, couple of reasons. Every time you eat, yes, it does kick up your metabolism because there is the thermic effect of food. That's one reason. So people felt, oh, if you don't eat constantly, your metabolism is going to slow down. I don't necessarily agree with that. The other reason is that if you're into like sports, and I know you're an amazing athlete, Brian, if you're into working out and you're lifting weights and you're just training, some people feel that when it comes to protein, your body really can't store protein. So the whole idea is that you want to constantly keep protein in the bloodstream to rebuild muscle and repair yourself. You know, you can in a way store protein because protein does go to muscle. That's like your amino acid pool. So for example, you can somewhat, you know, pull amino acids out of muscle, which people don't want to do. But in my opinion, that constant spike of insulin, like if you follow the guys that I like are like Ben Beckman, Why We Get Sick. He wrote that book all about keeping insulin levels low. I love Jason Fung. He talks about, he thinks like so much illness is based on constantly spiking insulin. I would say if you're constantly eating like that and you're constantly spiking insulin, I don't think it's a healthy state to be in. I think just ancestrally, you're much better off eating, going through a state where in your fasted state and then eating again. But that can work, Brian. It really can. I did it for 20 years and I like the zone diet. I like the 40-30-30. I like the macro ratio there. You know, you're not eating too many carbs, you know, you're eating whole natural foods. I love the zone diet, but I think you will do better with the zone diet, giving yourself like an 8 or a 6 hour eating window as opposed to eating multiple meals. But people would debate it with me and people would disagree. But I think you will. Plus, I think I think it's almost counterintuitive. I think you'll be less hungry also, which is almost, you would think the opposite. When you're constantly eating like that and constantly spiking insulin, you're always hungry. You always want more. You know, you never get your body used to being in a fasted state. And when you're in a fasted state, what are you doing? You're burning body fat. So I personally think your blood work will be better. You'll be less hungry if you did a zone type diet, 40-30-30, with say an 8 hour eating window. But it's debatable. It really is. Thanks, Brian. Great question, by the way. Cool. Okay, so let's go into blood flow restriction training. Let's talk about that first. Let's go to the next slide. But we'll talk about more of that. That's the big debate when intermittent fasting. Like, is it really better to give yourself a smaller eating window? And I'm in the camp that it really is. I truly think it is. Okay, let's go over exactly what is. And we're going to talk a lot about diet and everything too. It's interesting, Brian. Your second comment only showed up on my phone. This is what I said. I can't name them, but I have some people from Hollywood following you now. Oh, that's cool. We love how honest and clear you answer. Oh, thanks, Brian. I love that. There we go. I know, Brian. I don't want to say too many things about Brian, but Brian's somewhat of a famous Hollywood guy. So, you know, I don't like to talk about people until I have the permission or what I can say. But I appreciate it, Brian. That's great. You know, which is fantastic. I love it. Okay, let's go. Well, what is blood flow restriction training? I really love blood flow restriction training. Okay, blood flow restriction training means that it's a technique where you can use like very low. I don't know if I worded it right. I wouldn't necessarily say low intensity. It's like when you use low loads or low resistance, like you can use very, very light weights and you kind of occlude the limb and like blood pools within the limb. So what you're doing is that you're minimizing that venous blood return to the heart. So for example, you're going to put like a tourniquet on your bicep, something like this, like a band like this. You don't want to make it too tight. I'm going to go into it in great detail. You don't want to make it too tight, maybe like 70%, 80% tight. And what that does is that blood is going to go into the limb, into the bicep. Say when you're doing a bicep curl, it's going to pool there. And it's going to minimize the venous blood return to the heart. And what that does, it does multiple things. It gives you like an incredible pump, first of all, and metabolites build up. So for example, let me want to make sure I cover this whole slide perfectly. Minimizes venous blood return. Now, arterial blood return goes, arterial goes to the muscle, venous goes back to the heart. So you're minimizing the return of blood back to the heart. And why it works so well is that it creates a low oxygen environment. So you ever know when you're lifting weights, let's say you're doing a bicep curl and your biceps start to burn. Those are the metabolites building up within the muscle, like lactate, hydrogen. You're creating a low oxygen environment. And you can create that by using these blood flow restriction bands with incredibly lightweight. Like the general rule is you can use like 20%, 15% of your one repetition max result. So let's say you can curl like 50-pound dumbbells, for one repetition. You can literally take like a 5 or 10-pound dumbbell and create the same response wearing these blood flow restrictions bands. It's really incredible. I mean, there's been tons of research. It came out of China to cause the 𝘾𝙊𝙓𝙏 system, which we're going to talk about in great detail. I have the 𝘾𝙊𝙓 system here. That's the one that I use. I started out with these bands, and then I switched over to the 𝘾𝙊𝙓 system, which I think is just incredible. Like I say, so, you know, I want to go over the slide because I don't want to leave anything out. So, metabolic stress. Metabolites build up such as lactate, which is good for protein synthesis and hypertrophy. Now, hypertrophy just means the muscles get bigger. Protein synthesis is that you're converting those proteins into muscle. Look at it like that. You're getting more muscular. And it's also shown that for some reason when you're wearing these bands, you also recruit type 2B fibers. See, muscle contraction always follows a sequence, like when you're straining and lifting weights. There are those slow twitch fibers. You may have heard of them. I always describe it like this. I had a professor in college, 30 years ago who described it to me like this. Look at slow twitch fibers as being like dark meat chicken. They're very oxidative. They're good at burning oxygen. They're good at burning fat. They contract a little bit slower. So whenever you start an exercise, let's say you're doing a bicep curl, it's not that hard for you. In the beginning, you're recruiting the dark meat chicken, right? You're recruiting those slow twitch muscle fibers. They don't get as big as the fast twitch, right? They don't contract as quickly, but they're very good for aerobic activity. They're very good they have a lot of endurance. They don't fatigue easily, but they're not that strong. But let's say you're getting deeper into the set of those bicep curls and you're starting to burn, you're starting to work really hard. What happens is the body switches over and starts using type 2B fibers, those fast twitch fibers. Look at those as like being white meat chicken, like the breast of the chicken. Those are the ones that are stronger. They're more, they burn more carbohydrates. They actually get bigger. So if you want to get more muscular, you want to recruit those type 2B fibers. And for some reason, when you're wearing these, it's not totally understood, but when you're wearing these blood flow restriction like tourniquets, cuffs, your body switches over quicker to those type 2B fibers. Because that's another reason why this blood flow restrictions training works. The main reason is metabolic stress, the buildup of metabolites, creating a low oxygen environment, pumping the muscle up. The blood pools there. You get such an incredible pump. It's mind-blowing. If you've never used them before. You can literally put these bands on your arms and your upper arm. You can take 2 water bottles, do like 30, 40 reps, and your biceps will just blow right up. It's really incredible. And just think of all the benefits of that. You could be post-op. You could have just had an elbow operation. You can have tendinopathy, like tendinitis in your elbow, golfer's elbow, thrower's elbow, where you couldn't lift weights to rehab your elbow properly, but you can put these bands on and just take a couple of water bottles and pump up your biceps, pump up your whole lower arm, and get an incredible workout without putting any stress on the joint. It's really incredible. So it's great for rehab. It's pretty much a way to create a response while using extremely light loads, light weight. And it's also good for speeding up recovery, because some people describe how you put on muscle like this. Like there's 3 basic mechanisms in which you put on muscle. One is called like metabolic stress, like I'm talking about. You pump the muscle up. The other one is muscle damage. You make those little microscopic tears in the muscles, mostly from the eccentric load when the muscle's being lengthened under load. And then there's like muscle tension, obviously just lifting heavy weights, straining, progressive resistance. So when it comes to metabolic stress, lifting light loads, you're not really damaging the muscle. You're not really breaking it down. And you're not putting all that much tension on it because you're not lifting really heavy weights. So you can literally do like blood flow restrictions training almost every single day, because your recovery is so much quicker. Plus, it's just a great way to recover from working out in general anyway. Let me see if I'm missing any questions. I hope I'm not getting too sciencey with everyone in this. I wanted it to be really simple. Look at it like this. Blood flow restriction training is you're putting a tourniquet on either your upper arm or your upper thigh. And what that does is that you're letting the blood pool into the muscle when you're working out with extremely light loads. Let's break it down even further. Let me give you like an exact way of doing it. Okay, so let me pop it on. These are the like the most inexpensive ways of doing it. You would take a band like this, and I bought these on Amazon. You know, after this video, I'll put a link so you can you know, go right to these bands. These are like $20, something like that, and they have numbers on them. You throw it right on your arm, your upper arm. Then you pull it reasonably tight. That's why they give you numbers on this, because you can almost use the same numbers every single time. Like, you want about 70 to 90% tension on a scale of 1 to 10. Like, you don't want to fully occlude the muscle. You don't want to completely like stop blood from coming back. You want about a 70 to 80% restriction of blood flow. And there's something called a capillary refill test. So for example, if you're wearing these bands and you're training your biceps, what you want to do is you want to take your finger, you push in the palm of your hand. You want that white spot to come back within about 2 to 3 seconds. If you press down and the white spot does not come back, you know the bands are too tight. And you can do the same test with your thighs. If you're wearing these on your upper thighs, same thing. Press in the middle of your quad, see the white spot. If it doesn't come back within, say, 3 seconds or so, you know the bands are too tight. And you want to do pretty much high repetition type training. I mean, one protocol is you do one set with like 30 repetitions, rest 15 seconds, do another set of like 15 repetitions, rest 15 seconds, do another set to like momentary muscle failure. I mean, it really hurts too. I mean, but the metabolites really build up. You're getting that burning in a low oxygen environment, lifting really, really light weights. It's if you haven't tried it, I think you're going to absolutely love it. You know, let me talk a little bit more, then I'll show you the whole 𝘾𝙃 system. It's also good. There's been tons of research. It's also good for doing easy aerobics. Like, research has shown just walking with these bands on your upper thighs for like 20 minutes every day. Great for hypertrophy, great for older people. For me, I like doing it because of my knee. Like, I actually wear the 𝘾𝙃 system for my thighs, and I get on the Stairmaster for about 10 minutes. And the good thing about the 𝘾𝙃 system is that it cycles the pressure. For example, these bands, these are the thighs. These bands have like inner tubes inside them. And then I use a machine. This is somewhat expensive, but this 𝘾𝙃 machine is about $800. I use this machine here, which keeps on blowing the tube up, holds it there for about 10-15 seconds, and then it goes away. So you're restricting blood flow, but then it eases up and the blood flow comes back in. I like this because you can never run into trouble. I think it's safer and you just get an incredible burn. I love it. I've been doing it now for months. It's made a big difference for my knee. But you know, we'll talk about it more. I think the next slide is, yeah, let me go to the next slide. I want to give you pictures of it. So these are the inexpensive way to do it with the bands, you know, which is great if you just want to try it. I would start with this just to see how you feel about it. Do you like it? You know, you spend $20, and then if you really want to get into it, I think this is the best system, this 𝘾𝙃 system. This is the 2.0, the one I have. There's even the one in this picture here, that's the brand new one. The brand new one, the only difference between this one, the one that I have, and the brand new one is this one will only give you 7 cycles where they pressurize and then they release. That one will give you, you can do it for 20 minutes straight. So if you're doing a 20-minute walk, if I'm walking for 30 minutes with this on, I have to keep on resetting it every 7 minutes and restart a new cycle. But I really think this is going to get tremendous, this blood flow restriction training. Also, you know, the guy I always follow, Peter 𝘒𝘃, the Harvard MD doctor, he's using it constantly. He used the 𝘾𝙃 system. He made a number of Instagram posts about it. It has so many different applications. Incredible for rehab, right? Incredible for recovery, incredible if you're injured. If you're an elderly person, you want to just develop your leg strength and hypertrophy just from walking. I think it's going to be the future of resistance training. It's going to be so evolved around this blood flow restriction training. Okay, anyone have any questions about it? I hope I explained it well. You know, it's really it could be really complex if you're trying to figure out the mechanism in which produces the protein synthesis, the hypertrophy. But if you just look at it like this, you're just letting the blood pool within the muscle, and that creates a response that's going to make you stronger, more muscular, great for hypertrophy. It really is a cool system. All right, let's go to the next thing. hope that wasn't too sciencey. Let's see. Okay, let's go walking backwards. I just want to talk about this. I want to talk about it's kind of interesting because I read this book. I've been looking like, I don't know, maybe I read this book a couple of months ago. This is called 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂. The guy who wrote this book is a young guy. I think he's like 30 years old. His name is Ben Patrick. He's known as the knees over toes guy. You know, since I've been, you know, like I said, I'm turning 60. I've owned the gym for over 30 years, but I've been me and Brian used to work out 30 years ago all the time at Gold's Gym. I mean, I've been working out from the ages of 13, 16. And there's a whole thing in the fitness when it came to squatting, when it came to like training your lower body. And one general consensus was you never want your knees to extend beyond your toes because you're going to go put pressure on your knees. Even though, you know, over the years, there's been always people saying, no, that's necessarily true. You should create a shearing force like that. It's good to develop the knees. Even like a sissy squat, which is a bodybuilding maneuver where you pretty much let your knees really extend beyond your toes to develop your quad, your VMO, vastus medialis. That's the muscle, that medial muscle right next to your knee. But the general consensus is don't do that. They're all mobility movement guys like 𝘒𝘾𝙏𝙏, who's a really interesting guy. He's like an incredible mover. He's like a movement specialist who's been talking about this stuff for years. What does Brian say here? Yes, the Bulgarian workout. It's funny because I don't remember this, Brian. I don't know. Did we order it together? But I don't know. Because this is actually a pretty good story. We you know, this is pre-internet, right? This is when like if you know, this is when you would like look at a bodybuilding magazine like Muscle and Fitness and Iron Man. You look at the back of the magazine and you would see a classified ad where you would send away one popular thing was called the Bulgarian secret workout. It was was that the name of it? The Bulgarian secret like muscle building workout. At the time, this is like in the 70s, maybe early 80s, the Bulgarians were breaking world records in strength training, and they had a completely different approach than what we were doing in the US. I think it was called like the secret Bulgarian workout. And you send away, they send you this like booklet, and you get the booklet. And the general consensus of the booklet, what my takeaway was, especially now in hindsight, looking back at it, first of all, the Bulgarians worked out 3 times a day. You know, the U.S., like powerlifters, back then they would work out maybe for 2 hours or so, maybe longer, but they would do it in one long workout. Obviously, they would rest in between, but the Bulgarians felt like, you know, you can only work out hard for like 45 minutes or so. So what they would do is they would work out like once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and then once like in the evening, and they felt like they can get the max effort out of it. Let's see, remember the Bulgarian? Let's see. I think it was supposed to be from Bulgaria, Olympic team. Yeah, I think you're right, Brian. I think it was the Olympic team. Right, because they were the guys that those the guys and gals breaking all the records, and they would work out like in the morning, in the afternoon, and evening 3 times a day for only about 45 minutes, and they felt they got max effort. And the other big thing they were doing is that they were eating a tremendous amount of chopped meat. They felt like, no, you got to eat chopped meat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And in hindsight, what I think why that worked so well, this is pre-creatine era. You see, creatine is like an incredible supplement. I have it right here because I want to talk about it later when I get into the protein supplements. Creatine, you know, helps the body make ATP. It's stored in the muscle. A little over 2 pounds, I think. 1 kilogram of red meat is like consuming 5 grams of creatine. So red meat is really high in creatine. So it's so proven. Just like this blood flow restriction training, creatine is probably by far the most studied, the most effective. No one really even debates it anymore. Creatine just works. You're stronger. You put on muscle. It's incredible for protein synthesis. They were probably creatine loading back then in the 70s without realizing it. You know, no one was talking about creatine. There was no such thing as a creatine supplement. So they got a couple things like incredibly right. The fact that you can work out hard for more than, say, 45 minutes per workout. And they were loading their muscles up with creatine by eating so much red meat 3 times a day, which is really incredible. You know, it was really cool. I would love to have that booklet to read it now. I don't know what happened to it. You know, it's really interesting. Okay, so let's go back to this. That was a good sideline. Let's go back to this walking backwards. Okay, so even though there are like mobility movement people like an 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃𝙗, even other people have always been saying for years, no, you really should condition yourself knees over toes, and there's been a number of different people talking about it. But I have to say, this young kid, especially during the pandemic, really made it popular, walking backwards, from this book. And he also has another book too. He wrote this book during the pandemic, and the gist of this book is pretty much the saying: walking 100 steps backwards is like walking 1,000 steps forward. It's kind of like a saying, and I think it's just saying, the saying may have came out of Japan. I think, I'm not quite sure. I think he mentioned Japan or China, where a lot of people have been walking backwards for years, especially elderly people, because it makes their knees feel so good. It prevents arthritis, things like that. So the gist of this book is he wants you to first start walking backwards, right? Then eventually pull a sled walking backwards, and then do a number of different exercises where you are letting, let me show you what I mean, where you are letting, see, this is him here pulling a sled backwards, where you are letting your knees go beyond your toes, and you're putting a little bit of strain on the knees. I'll give you an example. Like, for example, here, like you're doing a calf raise where your knees extended beyond your toes. There's a number of different exercises you can do where your knees pretty much extend beyond you. This is a classic one here. See where his back leg, and he's slowly letting the knee go beyond the toe. And these are movements that for many, many years, traditionally, like fitness instructors, personal trainers, like fitness coaches, just would not have their clients do, because people always felt, no, you're going to put too much strain on the knees. You want to throw your butt back, right? You want to squat off the middle of your foot, off your heels. But I have to say, the big takeaway in why I think this is working so well for so many people is the key of micro progression. That was the thing that I've always had the hardest time with in my like fitness journey, and like even training clients, is truly understanding progression. I remember another friend of mine, and Brian knows this guy, Dr. Stephen Brown. He was a chiropractor friend of mine. He said this to me like 25, 30 years ago. He said, Mike, if you progress slow enough, you can get your body used to doing just about anything, things that may even be bad for your body. That's why it can get so confusing. Like, for example, you'll see a video of like an 85-year-old yoga woman, right, doing like a bizarre position where you would say, oh my God, how is like balancing a whole body on her wrist when her wrist is fully extended? Like, how is she able to do that where anyone else would kill someone? You know, she's been doing this type of stuff. She micro-progressed her whole life as a young person. She's probably been just practicing yoga for 60 years. And she probably went very, very, very slowly. I mean, she may be genetically predisposed as well, and she's able to do that. So besides the fact that walking backwards is a great thing to do for your knees, because it is putting that little bit of pressure on your knees when your knees extended beyond your toe, the key is to micro progress, meaning start off so easy. Like when I started, I literally only was walking 100 steps backwards. I did that for a couple of weeks. Then I went to 200 steps backwards. Then I went to 5 minutes. Now I'm doing like 15 minutes once or twice a day. And there's no question about it, my knee's feeling better. Like, you don't want to fall, you don't want to hit your head, you don't want to run into trouble like that. But if your knees are giving you trouble, but I think everyone should do it, try walking backwards. Start walking backwards nice and easy and see how it goes. I actually purchased the sled. I tried it once or twice, but I haven't found the right place to use it. But I'm going to start pulling a sled backwards. And then I'm going to start progressing to some of these other exercises where my knee is extended beyond my toe when I'm squatting up and down. And I'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm going to give it, like I said, I'm turning 60 in August. If I don't get my knee to where I'd like it to be, which is a little bit more functional, and that, I'm probably going to definitely try another knee operation, or definitely try something. But I'm really excited about this walking backwards. And a couple of people who've been following me on YouTube have been leaving comments. A few people have started doing it. They've been walking backwards, and their knees already feel better. They've only been doing it for a few weeks. So I would give it a try. I think there's really something to it. And then an interesting thing, and that's why I wanted to call this like this live stream like innovative tools you can use, using the combination. And I've tried this once so far. I'm going to start doing it more and more. Using the combination of blood flow restriction with backwards walking can really be incredible when you think about it. You can actually take these bands, put them on your upper thighs, or you can take the 𝘾𝙊𝘏𝙏 system. I'm actually going to do this later today. Once again, I've been fasting all morning. Right? I just had my couple of cups of black coffee. I'm drinking now a cup of hibiscus tea. So I'm going to take my 2-hour Sunday walk, which I always do. I'm going to probably walk an hour forward with a little backwards walking. Then I'm actually going to put on this 𝘾𝙊𝙓𝙏 system, and I'm going to do the same thing the second half of my walk with this on. So I'm going to start experimenting with walking backwards with the blood flow restriction training to get a better response. I think it's really going to work well. And another thing I've done, because I've really tried everything for my knee, is I've also used blood flow restriction training with muscle stimulation. I use Russian Stim. Okay, I have access to like a real professional muscle stimulation machine. Muscle Stim is pretty much like you put the electrodes on your muscles and it makes the muscles contract. I use Russian Stim. I think that's the best one for this particular protocol. And you can buy these stim machines $50 on Amazon. I have a real expensive one because it has ultrasound on it, and it also has muscle stim. So what I do is that I use the 𝘾𝙊𝙏𝙏, I'll put them on my upper thigh, then I put the electrodes on my legs, and then I do my Russian Stim. See, Russian Stim, once the stimulation hits the muscle, you're supposed to contract the muscle. So I'll do like a knee extension with like almost no resistance with the aid of the muscle stim with the blood flow restriction training, and I get an incredible response. I found a couple of studies about this, and it's really working. No one's really talking about it. I was even on I think I was on Clubhouse, that talking app, and Ben Greenfield, I like him a lot, Ben Greenfield Fitness. He was talking about like blood flow restrictions training, and I was listening to the podcast to this like live stream. When I was doing that, I was talking about it with him, and some people like commented about it. I think it's another incredible way to rehab. Like distal limbs, like if you have a tennis elbow, you have anything going on with your elbow or your wrist or your knee or your ankle, that you can use blood flow restriction training with some type of muscular stimulation. Incredible, I think, post-op. After a knee operation, ankle operation, wrist or elbow operation. I think it's really great. Plus, there's also a benefit of these metabolites building up, like that lactate building up. That's also will work throughout the whole body. Even though it's isolated to the limb you're working, there are still brain benefits. It's good to create these metabolites. Not to overdo it, but it's an overall body stimulus, which is great. There's even some studies that show you working, like if you're working your right arm, you're going to get benefits on your left arm and vice versa. It's really interesting, this stuff. I see we're not getting, I know last time when I was talking about time restricted eating, which is kind of like what I'm known for on YouTube, we had much more people in the room. I think we had like 30 people in the room. I hope we only got a few people in here now. If this wasn't the best topic for the live stream, next 2 weeks I'll get back to the diet. But we'll talk about diet in the Q&A at the end too. But let's go into a little bit more maybe in my wheelhouse here with the diet. Let's talk about these protein shakes. Okay, let's first go over what I think is probably the best. Let me see, 9. Let's do this one first. Okay, let's go over what I think is like an ideal protein shake, and I'm going to kind of gear it mostly to like a pre-workout shake, which I like to have, or just if you just want a little bit of protein during the day, you want to do a meal replacement. Let's go over the different type of protein sources. There's all different, like every protein source, whether it's a whey protein or a plant protein or an egg or collagen. I have them all here. I'll show you some of my favorites. Have a different amino acid profile. So amino acids are like the building blocks of protein. There's like 20 protein amino acids. It can be confusing when you're like reading something and say, oh, this is an amino acid. There's hundreds and hundreds of amino acids in the body which create reactions and work together. But when it comes to the protein amino acids, like the building blocks of protein, there are like 20 of them. There are 9 essential amino acids. Okay, those are the amino acids that the body can't make on their own. You have to get them through food. And if you don't get them through food, you're not going to be healthy over time. So really important to eat complete protein. That's what they mean when you hear the term complete protein. You're eating all 9 essential amino acids. And 3 of the essential amino acids are called the branched chain aminos, which are really important. For years, people felt like all you needed were branched chain aminos to build muscle, to put on muscle. But the new research is saying that no, you really do need all 9 of the essential amino acids to really get really good protein synthesis to really put on muscle for hypertrophy. But the branched chain aminos are called leucine, isoleucine, and valine. And I made a little note of mTOR. See, mTOR is like growth signaling. And it seems like out of all the amino acids, leucine is the most important. Besides the amino acid itself helping you put on muscle, leucine is really important to turn on mTOR. To start growing anabolic, like to put on muscle for protein synthesis. So mTOR is really important. So for example, if you're taking in a protein source that's not a complete protein, that's low in leucine, it's not going to be great for protein synthesis. I mean, you can pull leucine out of the amino acid pool, like from other muscles within your body, which you don't want to do. That's why it's so important to eat complete protein. And you know my general rule, I believe most people don't eat enough protein. I like 0.9 grams of protein per pound of lean body weight. I even think you can be much more simpler than that and just eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. It can get a little kooky if you're really overweight, like if you're 300 pounds, you may not want to eat 300 grams of protein. You may want to pick your goal weight. Say you're 300 pounds, you want to weigh 225, so you may want to eat 225 grams of protein. Same thing on the opposite. If you're really petite and thin, let's say you're a 110-pound gal, but you only want to weigh 100 pounds, you know, I wouldn't go that low. I probably would eat more protein. And so either extreme, but generally you can go 1 pound of body weight, 1 gram of body weight per pound of 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Sorry, I got a little phone off. I think our doorbell just rang. Okay, so let's go over my favorite protein source. I really like whey protein, especially a whey protein isolate. Why I like whey is that it's probably like the rock star of leucine. It probably has the highest ratios of like leucine and branched chain amino acids. And I think this is a real good one. This is one of my favorites. This is called Garden of Life, grass-fed whey protein. If you notice this little thing here, this is what I look for when I pick protein. Let me see. You know, let me change camera angle so you guys can really see it. See this thing? It says truly grass-fed. You see, whey protein or all these protein powders are sourced from different parts of the world. And when it says truly grass-fed, that comes from Ireland. And Ireland is probably one of the one places in the world where you can truly grass-feed the cows, you know, all year round. And every country has different regulations. New Zealand's another good one. Brazil, pretty good. But sometimes in these countries, even though they says grass-fed, sometimes there's you get a drought, and then they're giving the cows grass pellets and some other food, so it can be a little confusing. But truly grass-fed, I think, is the best. And this is 91% whey protein isolate. See, I like isolate because everything is stripped out of it. So you like the fat stripped out, the carbohydrates stripped out. So you're really just getting straight protein, like a high amino acid profile. You know, so if you're lactose intolerant, like I am, I don't digest. I can't drink a glass of milk. I can't have yogurt, and I can't have a whey protein isolate. It doesn't upset my stomach. So it's very low in lactose, which is really great. This particular one does give you 9% of milk protein. See, milk protein is pretty much just like dried milk powder. So we'll have some casein, which is a slower digesting protein, and it will has a little bit of that lactate, the lactose in there. But that 9% doesn't bother me. Plus, I think they put it in there because it makes the protein powder taste a little bit better. Whey is a quicker digesting protein, so you get the fast digesting protein of the whey protein isolate, and then you get a little bit of a slower releasing protein with the 9% milk protein. Right? And this one I think is one of my favorites. Just tastes great. It's really good. So that's a great base ingredient as a pre-workout, intra-workout, post-workout. Now there's also plant proteins that I think are great too. See, hemp and pea. That would be, this is actually a good brand. It's called Warrior Blend. This is a combination of plant and pea protein. You are going to get a little bit more carbs, and you're going to get a little bit of other nutrition because the amino acid profile of a pea or hemp won't be as high in leucine, but it still gives you a pretty good amount, and it's a complete protein. But for example, if you just went with like a rice protein or something it's not going to be a complete protein. But hemp and pea, I think, are one of my more favorites. Then there's the egg. Egg is another great complete protein, pretty high in leucine, easily digestible. I find that the egg proteins don't really mix as well. They're a little foamy. They don't really taste good. I like this unflavored one, so when I use this, I'm going to be putting it in a juice. But we're going to go over the exact juice and that I put it in. I put it in some type of carbohydrate, and then this collagen. See, I love collagen. I like collagen. Collagen has a completely different amino acid profile than like a whey or pea or hemp. Not too high in leucine. It's high in glycine and proline, which are really good for your skin, hair, and nails. Good for your connective tissue. Good for your gut lining of your stomach. But I personally do 20 grams of collagen protein every single day. But if I'm using collagen protein as a pre-workout drink, I want it to be complete protein because collagen doesn't have any tryptophan, which is one of the essential amino acids. I'll mix it with like a whey, or I'll mix it with a little bit of egg, or I'll put a little bit of like hemp protein in it to make it a complete protein. I don't know. So that's just a little bit. If you have any questions about the protein powders, let me know. Just to give you a little idea, I would say whey is like the rock star, right? If when it comes to muscle building, because it's so high in leucine and had good amounts of all the 9 essential amino acids. The only downside is some people do have an issue with dairy, right? And some people, like most whey proteins, that's why I look for an isolate, use a concentrate, which is like where you're getting the casein, you're getting some fat, you're getting some carbohydrates. Some people who are lactose intolerant have a hard time digesting it. So if you have an issue with dairy, try a whey protein isolate like this one here. Or maybe you want to go with a plant protein, which is pea, or, like a hemp or pea, which is a complete protein, which is good, not as high in leucine. Okay, egg protein is great. I would say that's the closest probably the whey. Doesn't taste as good, foams up a little bit, may not dissipate in water as well. And collagen you're doing mostly for your skin, hair, nails, and connective tissue, which is great. I even told the story. My nails were splitting about 6-7 years ago. It was really bothering me. I started taking 20 grams of collagen protein. The splits in my nails went away, never came back, which I'm really happy about. I think Jimmy will go, okay. I think the question, cool now. I think the questions are coming in now. Can you drink whey protein powder when you're sedentary? I think you can, sure. I mean, it is a higher glycemic. It is going to give you an insulin spike. But just think about, you get 25 grams of protein for 100 calories. For you to get 25 grams of protein from an animal source, it's going to be a lot more calories because there is fat and things like that, obviously. And like if you had like 4 ounces of salmon or steak, it's going to be way more than 100 calories because there's fat in the salmon, there's fat in the steak. A general rule is every 4 ounces of chicken, fish, and meat is about 25 grams of protein. So I do think whey protein is a good way of getting a good amount of protein while keeping your calories down. Because calories is such a big factor. So no, I think if you're sedentary, I think it's a good thing. Plus, whey protein, get some calcium, good for the bones. I think it's a great protein source, and most people can really tolerate it pretty well. And it generally mixes with water well, and it tastes great. Out of all the protein powders, whey pretty much tastes the best. The plant proteins, pea and hemp, if you're doing them plain, they don't taste good, but they can flavor them okay. Like this thing, I think this is probably one of the best tasting plant-based protein, the warrior blend. It does taste pretty good. They sweeten with monk fruit and like stevia. Tastes good. I don't think it tastes as good as whey, but it still tastes pretty good. And then the egg just doesn't taste good. I'm going to be honest with you. But if you're mixing it with a juice or something, you won't even notice it. And the collagen, it's great because the collagen is unflavored and it really dissolves like so well in hot liquids. People love to put it in like coffee or tea. It dissolves instantly. You're not even going to taste it. If you did it in just plain water, you might taste it a little bit, but in tea or milk, tea or something, you won't taste it. Hey, James, how you doing? Good to see you. Just got back from my 1-hour walk. Oh, that's good. I know you've been doing that every Sunday. I'm proud of you. Great job, James. I appreciate it. And California, the weather. I hear the weather's nice in California now. That's great. Glad to have you here. We talked about a little bit of blood flow restriction before and walking backwards. Like I've been on that for a while. But now we're talking about protein powders and like a pre-workout shake. Okay, so definitely you want, in my opinion, you want protein as a pre-workout drink, as a main component. Let's see. Hey, this is great. I was told eating a high-fat meal along with whey protein decreases. No, it definitely, the glycemic load will be less. There's like the glycemic index is like how an individual food will spike like blood sugar. And then, for example, if you took carbohydrates along with proteins and fats, the glycemic load, like you'll get less of a blood sugar spike for sure. So that is a good thing to do if you want to do that. So for example, like that's why some people may prefer a whey protein concentrate, because you are getting some fat in the concentrate because they're not stripping anything out of it. A pea and a hemp protein will give you less of an insulin spike, right? Because you are getting some carbohydrates, some fats in the hemp and the pea, right? Collagen, since it's lower in leucine, you're not going to get as much of a spike. Egg, you'll get a good insulin spike. But definitely taking in some fat with these protein powders will definitely minimize the blood sugar response. Definitely. And there's been even a lot of good research saying that even if you're eating like a normal meal, like say you're doing a post-workout meal that's high in protein, all that, even taking a little bit of extra like whey protein can help with protein synthesis, can really increase that. Even essential amino acids, just taking an essential amino acid supplement with your post-workout meal can really help. Okay, so definitely a key ingredient to a pre-workout drink, or just protein shake. Obviously, it's protein. But there's another thing that I like to put in all my pre-workout shakes. It's like a nitric oxide enhancer. Let's see what Brian's got. Is there a shake you can make the night before for us early? Oh, you definitely can. I mean, it's really interesting because I think I talked about this last time a little bit. Similar to like you talked about, that whole concept of eating a bunch of small meals a day might be better than just bunching into a smaller eating window. And one theory for that is that, okay, is all this stuff like protein, like when you're going to use like the protein, how much protein can your body use in one meal? And I think the research is still a little bit mixed, but you do hear a number of different things. First off, for many years you heard, oh, you can only process for protein synthesis, maybe 25 to 30 grams of protein in any one meal. Okay, but that's even changed now, and there's been some meta-analysis that's done, and some real research looked at it. Said no, there's so many different factors. One is like how big you are. Obviously, if you're 100 pounds, you're a 200-pound guy. A 200-pound guy could probably use more protein per meal, right? How active you are. If you're lifting weights, you're really active, you can probably utilize more protein for protein synthesis per meal. And the other thing, how old you are. The older you get, the more protein you need. And I've even looked at studies that talked about how when it comes to intermittent fasting, people who took in like 80, 90 grams of protein in one meal did just as well as people who did that like 25 to 30 grams of protein in 2 or 3 meals. That is really more important, the total amount of protein you're taking in per day. So I think that's definitely, Brian, you can do a protein shake in the evening and you'll get benefit in the morning for sure. I definitely think you will. It depends on which route you want to go. If you go like a whey protein, like before you go to sleep, you will get a little bit of a spike. Maybe you want to do more of like a hemp seed or pea. And there's a lot of tricks you can do. Like, for example, I do this too. Like, I should have brought it down here. I also have a number of different essential amino acid supplements. Essential amino acid supplements are pretty much just those 9 essential amino acids, where you're going to get like a similar profile, like high in leucine, high in isoleucine, high in valine, but they're going to be extremely low in calories. For example, you can get the equivalent of 30 grams of whey protein with an essential amino acid supplement for just like 10, 15 calories. So in your case, Brian, if you don't want to really eat right before you go to sleep, and if you don't want that insulin spike right before you go to sleep, you can do an essential amino acid supplement at night. Only get like 10, 15 calories and get the equivalent of taking in 30 grams of whey protein. And it's really good. There's a really good, 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃 is a good one. I can list it below this video after this. 𝘾𝙊𝘃 is a good one. I've been buying one that's been on, I mentioned it last time, it's been on sale. It's like $15. It's normally like $35. It's called vegan, like gun instead of vegan. Essential aminos. I like that one too. That's the one I've been taking. I bought a couple of them because they're on sale now. I do that all the time too. And a lot of things I like to do is like, if say for example, if you wanted more of a slower digesting protein like a hemp or pea, you can also add a scoop of the essential aminos in there to improve the amino acid profile. I do that a lot, especially post-workout. Like even if I'm eating like my normal salad with salmon and this and that, I may cocktail that with an amino acid drink, because research has shown that when you get that leucine up there, it really does help with protein synthesis. Or you can even just take some branched chain amino tablets. See, I'll take branched chain aminos as long as I'm consuming them with a complete protein, because I know that I'm getting all 9 there. But if I'm not, then I may just do the essential aminos. Oh, sure. No, no, welcome, Jimmy. I appreciate you showing up. This is great. I appreciate it. I love all your questions, Fine. I'm so happy you showed up again. This is great. Okay. Now, another thing that I think is really great to add to your pre-workout shakes are these nitric oxide enhancers. I mean, if you look at most pre-workout like powders that you buy, they're going to have a couple of key things in there. Sometimes they put creatine, which we'll talk about. I don't think you should take creatine as a pre-workout supplement because it's not going to help you like quickly during the workout. Like creatine has to accumulate into your body, into your muscles over time. Okay, so that's not really one that I think that could be a better post-workout supplement. Well, we'll talk about it. But you'll see these nitric oxide enhancers in your pre-workout drink. So what they do is that when nitric oxide, your body makes nitric oxide, it's a molecule, but when nitric oxide is elevated, it like vasodilates. It's great for blood flow, gives you a great pump, can help you with exercise performance. So, and there's a couple of different like natural things you can take that's going to increase your nitric oxide. I personally like beets. So what I've been doing lately is that I've been taking about 6 to 8 ounces of beet juice in my pre-workout shake. And there are pros and cons. The pros is that 8 ounces of beet juice has a lot of nitrates in it. See, the general rule is what the research is showing, you really do need, if you're 150 pounds or heavier, you need about 400 milligrams of nitrates, like naturally occurring nitrates from beets or from leafy greens or from arugula to really get that improved exercise performance. So many of the supplements, and I just read this whole study where they took like a couple of dozen different powders and then they looked at beet juice. So many of these powders do not standardize the nitrates, meaning that even though it's saying they are giving you beetroot, when you really, analyze it and it goes to a lab, you're only getting 50 milligrams of nitrates. You're getting nowhere near enough nitrates to get the response you want, to get that improved exercise performance. Probably the best source is just going with straight up beet juice. And that's what I've been doing. The only negative of doing that is that there's calories there, right? I'm getting 100 grams, I'm getting 100 calories, 25 grams of carbohydrates, where depending upon what my goals are, like when I talked about in the live stream I did about a month ago that I'm in the middle of this 8-week cycle now where I'm looking to gain a little bit of weight. I'm looking to put on a little bit of muscle before I turn 60. So I'm in a positive energy balance now. I'm probably taking in about 1,200 extra calories, per week, maybe even a little bit more. So I don't mind doing this beet juice, which is an extra 100 calories. Plus I'm getting another 100 calories or so from the protein shake, from the protein powder, which brings me to 200. I'm also adding a little bit of celery juice, which is also high in nitrates. Maybe I'm doing a shake that has maybe 250, 300 calories. I don't mind that. But you can get this like enhanced nitrates without the calories if you look for certain beetroot powders. There's one called Oxy, I think it's called Oxy 9. There's a couple of them that they actually state how many nitrates are in them. So really look for that. I'm going to list it below this video too. So if you want to go with the beetroot powder instead of the actual beet juice, you could, but just make sure that you're getting a supplement where the nitrates are standardized and you're getting an adequate amount of them. I'll give you some examples below it. Another way to enhance nitric oxide is leafy greens. Arugula is also like the king. I also eat 100 grams of arugula just about every single day. 100 grams of arugula does have about 400 or 500 milligrams of nitrates, which is great. Another super one is red spinach extract. I think that's the one that's called Oxy 7. It says, like, there are certain labs that will take beetroot powder and they will standardize it and then they trademark the ingredient and you'll see it in a pre-workout supplement. Same thing with red spinach extract. There are certain labs that will standardize that and put it in a supplement. The good thing about red spinach is that it has no oxalates. Some people are concerned about beets and leafy greens. High in oxalates can lead to kidney stones. I'm not concerned about that, but some people are. So if you're concerned about that, you might want to look for like a red spinach extract. I'll list it below these videos, some examples if you want to go that route. It's really interesting. I think there's definitely something to it. I notice a big difference if I'm doing it. Like say I'm doing a really hard, high intensity, like aerobic workout. I do 2 of those a week. I do like a HIIT routine only twice a week. and I keep it relatively short because I've talked about this before. I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here. I told you about this before. I don't think it's good to do that high intensity aerobic exercise like for extended periods of time too often. It leads to AFib. There's so much correlation between AFib and working out too hard for too long. So many famous athletes like Billie Jean King, Larry Bird's got AFib. Mark Spitz, AFib, the Olympic guy. Remember he made the comeback. These athletes who, especially like more my age, athletes who really push so hard. Mark Sesson talks about it all the time. He's the guy who I follow all the time. He wrote all those books, The Primal Blueprint. He was a world-class endurance runner. He's got AFib. He takes a beta blocker. Working out too hard, too long aerobically really does mess with the electronics in your heart. It really messes you up. So if you're going to do high-intensity type training like HIIT training, it really has to be short. We're talking 10, 15 minutes. 1 minute hard, 30 seconds easy, 30 seconds hard, 2 minutes easy. Just do a few intervals a couple times a week. That's all I do. I do one elliptical workout. I don't even like it. I just do it because I know it's good for me. It's good for your VO2 max. And I do one Stairmaster workout that's short and hard. And when I do when I have the beet juice in me, no question about it, I'm 10, 15% stronger. I didn't read it yet, but I also, I think 𝘾𝙃𝙓𝙏 is on this too. The guy I always talk about. I talked about him earlier from Harvard. Sign up for his newsletter, The Drive. It's a great newsletter. It's a free newsletter. You get an email once a week on a Sunday, and he's talking about how good these beets are and this beet juices and how it's really good for exercise performance. And it's a legal thing to do if you're an athlete. Like, you're not going to get disqualified for eating beets or having beet juice. It's really incredible. So definitely something to it. The mechanism of eating nitrates, organic, healthy nitrate through beets, through leafy greens, through red spinach, is definitely going to help exercise performance, in my opinion. Hey, Sunshine is here. Hey, Sunshine, thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. That's great. Okay. Now, the other thing I like to take, which is kind of interesting, and you see these in all the pre-workout shakes, I also take L-Citrulline. See, L-Citrulline is a non-essential amino acid, so it's not one of those protein amino acids, right? That's why this amino acid thing gets confusing, because most people think, oh, amino acids, they're the building blocks of proteins. There's only so many of them. There's hundreds of amino acids. So this is L-Citrulline. L-Citrulline is a non-essential amino acid. That means the body makes it, but you can also get it through food, and you can take a supplement. And research has shown that L-Citrulline, when you take L-Citrulline, and the minimum dose probably for an effective dose is somewhere around 3 grams. You can go 6 grams. I go 4 to 6 grams all the time. It helps the body make arginine, right, which is another amino acid, and elevated arginine levels increases nitric oxide. So it's a different mechanism than eating nitrates. You're using citrulline to make arginine, and then arginine helps the body make nitric oxide, which vasodilates, gives you a great pump. And I definitely think it works. I think it's a safe thing to do. I don't think you have any issue. If you do too much of it, it could upset your stomach a little bit. Also good for erectile dysfunction. Research has shown mild to moderate erectile dysfunction. If you want to fool around with it there, it really works. Take like 6 grams of L-Citrulline, 45 minutes before. You're going to see a difference, I'm telling you, especially if you're anywhere near my age. It works. So you see L-Citrulline in a lot of pre-workout supplements or pump. They name these pre-workout supplements. Sometimes they say pre-workout or sometimes they say pump. The big difference between the two, in my opinion, most pre-workout supplements will give you a stim, meaning that they'll give you a caffeine to wake you up, or they'll give you some type of ashwagandha. They'll give you something to help you like concentrate for the workout, as well as a nitric oxide enhancer. They'll give you both of those things too. And then they'll go with some type of like beetroot powder, or they'll go with an L-Citrulline. See, research has shown that if you took straight up arginine, people say, well, why wouldn't you just take arginine? Why do you need citrulline to make arginine? Just take arginine. The body doesn't absorb it as effectively. You're better off taking L-Citrulline. Sometimes they mix L-Citrulline with malic acid. You may have seen that L-Citrulline malate, but it seems like you really need the citrulline. It's not the malate. Plus, most of these pre-workout, if you're doing a pre-workout drink, they flavor the pre-workout powder with malic acid, so you're gonna get it there anyway. But it seems like you really want the L-Citrulline. And that's another thing you have to look out for with these pre-workout shakes, is they never give you an effective dose. Like most of these companies, especially when you see a proprietary blend, they want to say they have L-Citrulline in it, but they give you 1 gram or they give you 2 grams. You need at least 3. You really need 4 to 6 to really get it. So like I said, you're better off taking L-Citrulline than taking straight arginine. And then there's a number of other ingredients. I didn't list them all here because I don't really take them. Similar to that beetroot powder, where there are certain labs that are making these trademark ingredients that are like, where they're, like I'm saying, they're standardizing the nitrates. There's so many different type of supplements that use the same mechanism as L-Citrulline. Right, like for example, there are some labs that'll do things where they'll take an arginine and they'll modify it and they'll make it better digestible. So there are a number of there's so many of them. There's a dozen or two that I'll list a few of them if you want on these videos. But I think you're just better off going with straight L-Citrulline. Okay, so my pre-workout shake that I would do is I'm gonna go with about 6 to 8 ounces of beet juice. I'm also gonna add probably a little bit of celery juice because I want more volume. And celery juice, to me, that's why I have carbs, high in electrolytes, high in potassium. You know, you get a little bit of sodium, electrolytes. I think it's the perfect pre-workout liquid. Like if you don't necessarily want to go with the beets because there's so much calories, you can really just go with straight celery juice. You know, 15, 16 ounces of straight celery juice is only 35 calories. 1,000 milligrams of potassium. I'm always talking about potassium. The adequate intake of potassium is 4,700 milligrams for the day. Most people are nowhere near that. A banana is 400. Got to eat 12 bananas to get your potassium for the day. Just think. So celery juice is such a great pre-workout, just electrolyte. Drink anytime. I love celery juice. I think it's one of the best drinks. So my pre-workout shake, I'll put like a scoop of collagen. Then I want to make it a complete protein, so I'll add some whey or add some hemp seed, something like that. I want 25 grams of protein in there. Then I'm going to go with my 6 ounces of beet juice. Then I'm going to top it off with the rest with celery juice, another 10, 12 ounces of celery juice. And then I'm going to put in about 4 to 6 grams of L-Citrulline. I don't want it to upset my stomach. A lot of pre-workout drinks, you can overdo it. It can upset your stomach. And that, I think, is just an ideal pre-workout drink. If you're worried about the calories, and you don't want to go with the beets, you can look for a powder that can do that. And if you want stim, you can look for a pre-workout powder that has like caffeine in it, and you can still throw the protein in and turn it into a protein like pre-workout shake for sure. I think it's really cool. What do we got here? Oh yeah, let me see. Did I talk about this? Let's see. Yeah, I think I talked about this. I think I covered a lot of the same topics. Let me make sure in the slide before. Oh, maybe I left that out. I skipped over that slide. That was just explaining all the things that I want in my pre-workout drink. I want protein. I want a nitric oxide enhancer, right? I want the electrolytes. I want the potassium, maybe a little magnesium. I want the, maybe a little bit of sodium. And then when it comes to the calories, it really depends on what your goals are. Like right now, I don't mind taking the calories from the beet juice and all that. But if I was doing, okay, let's talk about like if I was doing this in the summertime, so I'm following this 8-week cycle where I'm looking to put on muscle. I want to be in a positive energy balance. Let's say now I want to do like a little bit of a cut. I want to lower my body fat, maintain my muscle mass. How I would change this is I probably would give up a little bit of exercise performance by eliminating the beet juice. I'll probably just go with the celery juice, which is 35 calories. I'll still put the protein in there. I'll still put the L-Citrulline in there because there's no calories. But I'll probably go with like a beetroot powder or something along the lines of that. That's going to be much lower in calories than taking in the beet juice. And I try to find one that is standardized. That would be the big change I'd make. So that's a good point. All right, so let's go to a Q&A. I don't know. I don't know how well this went today because I know it seems like a lot of people, you had to really be like a fitness person, like a workout person to really enjoy the blood flow restrictions training, which I love though. And I think anyone could benefit from the backwards walking. But I know people come to me mostly for the intermittent fasting and for the weight loss. But if you want, let's talk about that. Let's take any questions anyone has about intermittent fasting, working out, lowering your body fat, anything. I know summer's coming. I'm starting to get a couple of calls at the gym, but the gym's still slow. COVID now, I mean, it seems like COVID is spiking like crazy again. You know, unfortunately, one of my clients' wives just came down with it. One of my daughter's girlfriends just got it. You know, hey, hopefully this thing will be over soon. So, any other questions about anything? How long we've been going? We've been going about an hour. I'm going to give it a couple bits because I know there's a delay. And unfortunately, I think I did miss a lot of the comments. I think this is going to be the last time I'm going to use Restream. I'm going to go straight on YouTube next time because I don't think I think all the comments I'm seeing came from YouTube. I didn't see any from Facebook. I didn't see any from LinkedIn or Twitter. But any other questions about anything? You know, before I go. Also, don't forget to call your mom. Right, it is Mother's Day. Okay. Hey, question. JC's got a question. Okay, let's see, JC. What do you got? I'll let to go for another. I mean, I got plenty of time today. I'm gonna call my mother after this. Yeah, I think the questions are coming in slow, but I think we got about 10 people in the room. Okay, let's see what we got. Okay, let's see. Okay, how to prevent weakness, feeling shaky when working out fasted. I know that's a tough one. It takes a long time, I think, to truly get used to it. It took me a long time. Like, for example, I am doing these pre-workout shakes. Happy Mother's Day from, oh, that's great, cool. That's good. You know, I am doing these pre-workout shakes, but there's many times when I when I don't. And at first, it was just hard. There's no question there's an adjustment period. But a lot of it, in my opinion, has to do with where you're coming from. Okay, meaning that I'm pretty much I'm pretty much a low carb eater. Like, I generally eat around 100 grams of carbs a day. I'm probably eating a little bit more now because I'm taking in that beet juice and I'm trying to be in a positive energy balance. But I would consider myself somewhat fat adapted. And what I mean by the term fat adapted is my body is pretty good at burning fat. And when you eat low carb or relatively low carb, not even keto, I'm talking about relatively low carb. Like, my general rule is, if you're 150 pounds, stay around 100 grams of carbohydrates, 400 calories. I think that's a good, relatively low carb diet, maybe even a little bit more. And most of your carbs, vegetables, some fruits. If you're 150 pounds or over, or you're just like a bigger guy or gal, 150 grams of carbs, 200 grams of carbs, much less carbs than what you're typically eating. Because in my opinion, I'm in that low carb camp. I think most of your empty calories are carbohydrates. Most of your processed foods are carbs mixed with fat, which is a bad combination. So research has shown that when you are somewhat fat adapted, or when you are fat adapted, when you're exercising, you're going to burn a greater percent of fat calories at high exercise intensities. See, generally, just when we talked about earlier, when we were talking about blood flow restriction, we're talking about how that muscle sequence, the dark meat chicken, is more oxidative, is good at burning fat. But when you're working out harder in the gym, when you start straining, the body starts burning more carbohydrates, starts recruiting more type 2 fibers, which are good at burning carbohydrates. When you're fat adapted, even though you're working out at higher intensities, you're burning a greater percentage of fat calories compared to someone who's a high carb, who's like a carbohydrate athlete. Like my son's a great runner. He runs in college, a super athlete, but he's a big carb eater. So, for example, if he switched over to a low carb diet, initially he'd probably feel horrible. He might be like you, JC. He may feel lightheaded. He may not feel good because his body is so used to burning carbohydrates as his main fuel source when he's working out, especially when he's working out hard. But if he switched over to more of a low carb diet, could take him months, if not even longer, for him to be able to work out at high intensities and burn fat as a fuel. You're always going to burn carbs too. And there's even gluconeogenesis, where the body will make carbohydrates out of proteins and fats, if it has to. But there's definitely an adjustment period. I would say to you, first of all, is don't torture yourself. Don't pass out. Don't get dizzy. Don't get lightheaded. Ease into it. Sometimes like a pre-workout thing, like just an essential amino acid supplement can really help, I think, too. Electrolytes can really help, taking in some sodium and things like that. It can really help, but just keep some carbs around when you're working out in case you really need them until you get used to it. Okay, I'm plant-based, 50 grams of carbs, 30 fat, 20 protein, 2,000 calories per day. Okay, 50 grams of carbs, 30 grams of fat, 20 grams. I would go more protein though than only 20 grams of protein for the whole day, unless you're talking about a pre-workout. So 50 grams of carbs, you only got 100 calories. 30 grams of fat, that's 30 grams times, what's that? 30 grams times 9. Let me figure that out for you. Let me see. Hold it. So we got 30 grams times 9. So are you just talking about, for that one? Are you talking about you're just as like a pre-workout shake, and that's really low calories? Let me pull up the feed again. So you're just talking about maybe as a pre-workout thing, 50 grams of carbs, 30 grams of fat, 20 grams of protein, 2,000 calories per day, 150 pounds training. Let me make sure I'm getting this right. Let's see. 30 times 9. Yeah, that's pretty low calories. Let me see. 50%. Oh, percentage. Oh, you're talking percentages. I'm sorry. Okay, percentages. Like that 50, 30. Oh, no, I like that. I think that's good. I think it's good. I mean, I personally, when you're plant-based, it's really hard to take in enough protein without getting the calories and the carbs. I mean, I don't know. I probably would still go a little less on the carbs if you could, and I would go maybe even more on the protein. So I just started working. Maybe a year ago, I started working with a vegan. He's doing great at the gym. He's doing incredible. He does take in a lot of pea and plant protein to get his protein up. I would maybe make a little adjustment, JC. Maybe go with more protein percentages. Get up to like 25%, if not 30%. And maybe reduce the carbs a little bit. Do something like that. Experiment with it. Carbs. So you're taking in 1,000 calories of carbs. Let me see how many grams that is. So 1,000 calories of carbs divided. You're 250. You're taking in 250 grams of carbs. I think that's a little high. I probably would go a little bit less. So I think you're probably a little bit more of a carb athlete with 250 grams of carbs, which is, I mean, you can do it. I mean, look at this. I ate like that for 20 years of my life. When I was in my like 20s and 30s and even maybe even early 40s, I was eating more of a ratio what you're talking about. I was taking in mostly carbs because I was a carb athlete. I was working out all the time. I was always keeping my protein high. I was eating 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Let's say it was 170 or 165. I'm taking in 165 grams of protein, a lot of carbs, and I kept my fat relatively low, maybe 10-15% of calories. And I looked great, and I felt good. The big difference for me is first of all, I was hungry all the time because I was always spiking insulin. I was doing what Brian was talking about too. I was eating multiple meals a day, hungry all the time because I'm always spiking insulin and like crashing, right? My blood work, when I would go to the doctor and have my cholesterol and all that done, wasn't bad, but nowhere near as good as it is now. My triglycerides were 3 times as high as they are now. My total cholesterol was high because when carbohydrates, when you're eating so many of them, go to the liver and then it can convert it into triglycerides. Now that I switched over to more of this lower carb, higher fat, adequate amount of protein type diet. First of all, I'm never hungry. Same thing with, and I'm doing this fasting. I'm never hungry all the time. My triglycerides are 41, 42, which are incredible. My HDLs are much higher now, in the 80s. But when I was eating more higher carb, they were lower. I feel better now. I think cognitively, I'm clear-headed. I like it. I really do. It's not for everyone. I think you can do what you're doing and be okay, but if you're used to burning carbs and you're more of a carb eater, you're gonna have a harder time with the fasted workouts, no doubt about it. So you got a couple of options. Either you can become a little bit more fat adapted. You don't have to. You can do that, Or, you know, it's no, you don't have to work out fasted either. You know, you can just take in a little bit of protein and carbs and, you know, get a good workout. You got a couple of different options, but maybe mess around with your macro ratio a little bit. Reduce the carbs. Try 40% carbs. Eat a little bit more protein and a little bit more fat, JC, and see how it goes. Get back to me the next time I go live. I'm curious. Do that for a couple of weeks and see how it goes. I think you'll be happy. I think your body fat's even going to go down too. Let's see. That's what James says. Okay. I start taking creatine. Is there possible hair loss? Yes, unfortunately. When taking okay. Mike, I started taking creatine. Is there possible hair loss when taking it? Is there videos on YouTube about it? Yes, and unfortunately there is a little bit of a correlation to hair loss and creatine. Actually, who just recently talked about it, another guy. This is probably my favorite podcast, and I talk about him all the time. 𝘒𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝘾𝙃, who's a professor from Stanford. He just interviewed Rhonda Patrick, who's another PhD. She's like another rock star of like the science world on the internet. And yeah, they were talking about creatine. He talks about it all the time. Yes, unfortunately, creatine monohydrate can possibly, I'm not even I don't personally understand the exact mechanism, but can possibly lead to, hair loss. So keep an eye on that. If that's a big issue for you, it would be an issue for me. I've never had an issue with it when I took it. And I actually have creatine right here. I was a little disappointed, though, to some degree, because this is creatine monohydrate, and I do like this company a lot. Actually, they have a pre-workout supplement that does standardize the nitrates at 300 milligrams. I'll list it below this. It's a good supplement as a pre-workout. They use a beetroot powder with a standardized amount of nitrates. They give you 300 milligrams, which is close to the 4. You probably want to get a little bit more. But first of all, creatine is such an incredible supplement. Cognitively, is good. There's been so much studies on it. It totally works. You're going to be stronger. Great for protein synthesis. I don't think you need to take 5 grams a day unless you're a big guy or gal. I think you can get by with 2.5. James, if you're a little concerned about the hair loss, don't do the 5 grams unless you really notice the hair loss. I mean, I'm not sure how, what your weight is. I think you can get away with 2.5 grams a day, especially if you're eating animal protein. Because like I said earlier too, like the Bulgarian workout, every 2 pounds of animal protein, like red meat's about 5 grams of creatine. Chicken, you need about 3 pounds of chicken for 5 grams of creatine. Red salmon has a good amount of creatine in it. A little bit of eggs, a little bit of dairy, but not much. Red meat is the best source. But if say you're eating 8 ounces of red meat, you're getting 1.5 grams there. Then you're doing 2.5 grams as a supplement. You're already at 4 grams. You may pick up another gram through your diet, through your fish, through your eggs, or things like that. So you don't have to really overdo it. What do you think about coffee with CBD? Yeah, it's interesting, Brian. Actually, I've been fooling around with CBD. I've been doing this CBD vape thing. A friend of mine gave it to me, where you don't get high at all. Like it's like 95% CBD and like very, very little THC. So you do not get. I don't get high at all with it, and I am sleeping so good with it. I really love it. I just started fooling around with it, but now I know it's going to be all this stuff's going to be legal in New York really soon, and now it's good in New Jersey, and I really like it. I think a couple of things. First of all, I sleep well. I got a lot of, and Brian, I got a lot. I'm so banged up, from working out all these years and from surfing all over the place and riding those dirt bikes as a kid. Like I said, every disc in my neck is like herniated or bulged. Every disc in my back, my whole lumbar is herniated or bulged. I got scoliosis, torn labrum in my right shoulder, right? Torn labrum in both hips, and now I got this knee. Even though I'm pretty functional, my knee is my biggest issue. I find it's great for pain. I think it's a good anti-inflammatory. I have to say, I'm becoming a big believer in this CBD. I've tried also my chiropractor friend, who I like a lot. He's a great guy. This is not Dr. Stephen Brown. He moved to Florida. This is Dr. Lawrence Rock. I think he's great. He's in Tarrytown. Great chiropractor. He gives me a good deal on it too. I tried those CBD creams. I think there's something to it. I don't know if it's placebo. They use a combination of like a menthol, so it's like taking an icy hot, but they give you a high CBD concentration. I think that kind of helps too. But I find that vaping, or even maybe I've never tried a gummy like a CBD gummy. or candy or something, I'm sure that would work too. I think there's something to this CBD. I think it's going to get tremendous. I think I'm sleeping good. I wake up in the morning. I don't feel groggy. I don't feel foggy. I feel like I feel pretty good. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go with it. I don't like the idea of breathing in that vape. But, you know, this is not like you're buying it illegally. This is purchased from like a pharmacist, you know, like a legal CBD place, you know, so you're getting like a pharmaceutical grade of it. I still don't like the idea of the vapor. I have to do a little research on that if it's really not good for your lungs. So maybe I would prefer taking, like you said, maybe a coffee or like a gummy, even though the gummy may have a little bit of sugar in it, whatever. But I like the CBD a lot. I'm gonna do some more research on it. Let's do a podcast about it about a year ago that was pretty in depth, saying I didn't realize that they say CBD is almost a neutralizing agent of THC. Like if you get like too high from THC, and like you went to the hospital, they may give you CBD to neutralize it. I didn't realize that, and I hope I'm not giving more misinformation here. I'm just repeating what was told to me in the podcast I was listening to. It was really interesting. I think this CBD is going to get tremendous. Let's see. Oh, JC, thanks so much. Always volunteering. Oh, thanks. I appreciate it, JC. Yeah, let me know. Mess around with those macros and let me know how you're doing in a couple weeks. Let's see. What would you tell your 24-year-old self? Okay, when it comes to the working out, well, I would say the biggest thing. Well, let's relate this besides to life in general. Let's relate this to like working out. My biggest mistake is I ignored signals. I ignored pain. Like for example, I'll give you a typical example. How I tore the labrum in my shoulder is me and my wife. These are before my kids were born, so this is like 21, 22 years ago. We went to Breckenridge on a ski trip. Now my wife was I was always a pretty good like normal skier, but I was dying to learn snowboarding. Plus, I wanted to be able to ski with my wife, and she was like an intermediate. So I figured, okay, I'm gonna start snowboarding. We can do the same mountains. Like I don't have to do the Black Diamond Mountains because I'm not a good snowboarder. So I go snowboarding. I took this horrific fall. And I remember when I landed, I was going to do like a face plant. I put my arm down, and I took the blow with my arm, my shoulder. So I slightly dislocated my shoulder. I remember like going like this, like popping it back in. And then my shoulder just like swelled up a little bit and really hurt me. But I get back from the trip, and like instead of doing the right thing and taking it easy, no, I'm benching 275 in pain. And then I pretty much trained my upper body in pain, in like bad shoulder pain for like 2 years. Finally go to the doctor, and he said, yeah, Mike, I think you tore your labrum. I didn't even want another MRI. I wound up getting an MRI on my shoulder like 10 years later. And he said, yeah, you got a torn labrum, you got a bone spur, they got another operation. I didn't do it, but the doctor wanted to go in there. He wanted to snip it away. I really wanted to get it stapled, to get it stitched up. Maybe one day I'll do that. My shoulder's pretty manageable now, but I don't there's a lot of things I can't do. Like I couldn't, not that I even want to, but I couldn't serve a tennis ball with this shoulder. I couldn't throw a football like I used to. I do most of my upper body training with dumbbells. Like I couldn't really barbell bench press because when you grab a barbell and you bench press, your hands want to slide together because just think your pec is pulling on your humerus, right? The shearing force is so much greater when you're doing chest training with a barbell or when you're doing push-ups as opposed to doing a dumbbell because your hands can come together. So, I do dumbbell work. I do relatively light. Actually, check out my last video. I just released the video yesterday on YouTube. It's my first vlog video where I take you through my entire day, like my walks in the morning, my walking backwards, my fasting. I go through a whole upper body workout. You'll see the type of workout that I do and all my meals. I thought the video would do really good. It did so, but I liked the video. Check out the video. But I would say that's the biggest thing I would say if I would have to tell my 24-year-old self something. When it comes to the working out, listen to your body. Like I should have just laid off. Back to that progression thing. I always had a hard time with progression, like progressing through injuries. Even my back. I dealt with back pain where I never let my back get better. Like I herniated a disc in my back surfing so many years ago when I was really young. And I'm squatting weight in pain. I worked out in pain, for decades. when I didn't listen to my body. That would be the big thing. And then and other like just life things. I wish I started saving money at a younger age. Wish I started investing in the stock market as soon as I had $1. You know, I wish I bought more real estate, like just like financial things like that. And you know, I guess there's I have a whole bunch of things. That would be a fun video. I'd love for my channel to be more than just intermittent fasting. I would love to talk about, like, you know, life's topics a little bit more. Maybe one day when I get a bigger following. Unfortunately, right now, the YouTube algorithm, if I don't talk about intermittent fasting, they will not show my videos to someone else. That's why that vlog video I released yesterday, I'm not known as a vlogger, you know? So that's why YouTube didn't even show the video. But everyone who watched it, like all you guys that follow me, you like the video, so I really appreciate it. Let's see what Krill's got. Krill. Oh, Finland, yes, Krill, how we doing? Can't listen live, but I'll be back and listening for that. Oh, no, I really, TRX. Oh, you bought a TRX? Cool. Is that innovative? Yeah, no, TRX is great. I like the TRX. I like it more for the pulling motions, like for the rowing and the abdominal challenges. I think the pushing motions is a little rough on the shoulders for me, like I'm saying, because I have that torn labrum. You know, you really have to get your, you know, really put you, I think, in a vulnerable position. But I love it for leg work. I use it with like the people that counterbalance for like squats and lunges. I think it's great for the abs. I think it's great for like rowing type movements. I think it's all great for that. I like TRX a lot. I think it's a great equipment. Oh, Gene is here. Hey, Gene, how we doing? Let's see. Whoa, 258. That's great. You're really back on track. See, that diet break was a good move, taking that diet break. I know Gene has really been losing a lot of weight. I'm really happy for you, Gene. Fantastic. That is cool. Really good. That was great. I know, Gene, you may have missed it if you just jumped in. We talked about some interesting things. We talked about some blood flow restrictions training. Watch the replay. We talked about the walking backwards, and then I went over a whole bunch of my favorite protein shakes, which I think you might find kind of interesting. Let's see. I know, Brian. Yeah, I sound like a stuntman. I know you're banged up too. I know. Essentially, you know what? There was a really, you know, he came out with this book years ago. 𝘒𝘋𝙏𝘾𝙃 Hamilton. You know 𝘒𝘋𝙏𝘾 Hamilton, the big wave surfer. I know you know who he is. I really like him. I'm a big fan of his. He did this book. I really liked the book. This was about, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago he did the book. And it was kind of like just a good feel, like a book that had a good feel to it. It wasn't too intense. He talked about like his training. Now he's, you know, he has this whole company. He has a public company where he has a supplement company, a line of clothing. He also has a company that trains trainers, and that he does these like fitness resorts, vacations. I'd love to do it. It's really expensive though. Like you do a retreat with him. So he became like a real like expert with like recommending fitness and workouts and things like that. And I think we're definitely on the same page. He's into fasting. He's into breath work. He's into low carb eating and all that. But in his book that he did about 15 years ago, he had a chapter where there's a picture of him, and it talks about all his injuries. He's injured himself an insane amount of times, like I just went through. You know, he points to all of it, and he talks about all his different injuries. Like he injured himself because he was riding those 100-foot waves, like incredible. And this is another thing I always wanted to do. I always wanted to do a book where you would interview athletes on all the different injuries and how they did or didn't like overcome them. Like you would interview like Joe Namath, and you know he's known for his knees. You would interview all these guys like our age in their 40s and 50s and 60s who are like, you know, really high level athletes, and you talk about all their injuries, and then you do like a chapter on every different athlete and what they did, what did work, what didn't work. I think it would be a great book. I would love to do something like that one day, or even, you know, interview some people, because I really want to get my podcast going again too, that Fitness Contrarian podcast. I think that would be a great episode where every week you would interview a different athlete, talk about all their injuries and how they physically and mentally, because also pain, I'm also a big believer too in that whole, John, I know we talked about too with Gene, besides the structural approach to fixing injuries, I think there's also such a big psychological component. I know it is with me. When I'm under more stress, when subconsciously things are bothering me, you know, sometimes pain is a distraction from what really, you know, what's underlyingly going on with your life. So your brain will kind of like protect you from creating physical pain, so you don't have to deal with mental pain. You know, it's really interesting. Okay, do you know if eating some carbohydrates is necessary for protein sparing? There are some mixed studies. You know, a lot of studies do show that mixing protein with carbs, you get a better protein synthesis response. It could be to some degree. I'm not like, I mean, keto, I have done keto, but never longer than a couple of weeks. I think there's definitely some good benefits of being in ketosis, or just, I like to say, mild ketosis. I'm probably regularly, mildly in ketosis, not over this 8-week period now, because I'm really doing this positive energy balance type thing to try to put on a little bit of muscle. But generally, 90% of the time, I feel like whenever I do, like, since I eat relatively low carbohydrates, whenever I do like a 20-hour fast, I'm in a mild state of ketosis for those last couple of hours. I think there's definitely good benefits to going in a mild state of ketosis, or maybe just doing a keto diet for 2-3 days. But I do think, yes, there might be something to it, that taking in some carbs, it can help with protein sparing. Because just think, with gluconeogenesis just means that the liver is creating glucose, because your body needs glucose, the brain needs glucose. Even if you're eating keto, you're in gluconeogenesis, like the liver's making glucose out of protein or fat. And yes, it could be a little sparing, for sure. It seems like for example, if you fast for 24 hours, and let's say you're not eating a low carb, let's say you're eating a normal diet, most people after a 24-hour fast will start dipping into ketosis. But initially, because you're not really fat adapted, your body is not used to like burning ketones as fuel, is that you'll probably kick into like a gluconeogenesis type phase within a 24 hours into a fast, where you are converting proteins or muscle, like amino acids from muscle, into carbohydrates. Now, Dr. Jason Fung will say, and I read his book, The Obesity Code. I read all his books, which I really like him. He'll say, though, that the longer you get into a fast, like say you extend your fast to, say, 36 hours, what happens is that the body is really smart, and the body will compensate with those counter-regulatory hormones. Like, for example, human growth hormone will go up, things like that. Cortisol will go up. Things will happen that will minimize that gluconeogenesis. And Dr. Jason Fung will even say, even though you're in gluconeogenesis, you may not necessarily be pulling proteins from actual muscle. Like you may be using connective tissue. You may be using the type of proteins that your body wants to get rid of anyway. It's not necessarily like you're losing muscle mass. It is a little bit debatable. But yes, to some degree, eating some carbohydrates can be protein sparing. That's why I'm not I know there are bodybuilders that have been keto for years, and they look incredible. There's that guy in, where's he from? I think is he in Mexico? He's like a famous bodybuilder. I forget his name, but I follow him on Instagram. He looks great. He's been keto for like 7 years, like no carbs. Like Peter Attia was keto for 3 years, working out like crazy. I mean, I'm more in like, I think a low carb diet is great. I think you get the best of everything. You're somewhat fat adapted. You have enough energy to get a good pump, carbohydrates in the gym. You are getting your potassium, your magnesium. You're getting a lot of fiber, which I'm a big believer in taking in enough fiber in the diet, 25, 30, 35 grams a day. And you can do that if you're eating 100, 150 grams of carbs, 125 grams of carbs a day. I like a low carb approach for sure. But thanks, Gene. That was a good question. All right, guys. So we're 1 hour, 38 minutes. Any other questions before I jump out and take my walk? I appreciate you hanging in there. And I promise, in a couple of weeks, I'll go back to more of like an intermittent fasting thing. It seems like that what people are more interested in. But let me know. Also, leave some questions underneath here. Let me know any comments on what you want me to cover in a couple of weeks on the next live stream. Also, I really would appreciate though if you watch my vlog and let me know if you like that style of video. I'll start doing a blog maybe once every couple of once every couple of weeks instead of just straight up. But I'm this week I haven't done a real straight up in my studio, with good lighting and all that, like a real straight up video. I was thinking about maybe doing something along the lines of, like, one of the simplest approaches to losing weight is just to track your calories and your macro and your protein. And either you can go back to what JC said, either you can mess around with the carbs and the fat. I may do a video like that. But any other questions now before I go? I want to give everyone a couple more minutes just to make sure. Let me look back on the phone to see if anything's coming in that I missed, because I think a lot of the questions haven't been coming in on the phone. All right, I'll give you. Let's go 1 more minute, and then I'm gonna blast. I'm gonna call my mom for Mother's Day, take my 2-hour walk. If you guys have time, get outside today, take a walk today. Fool around with that backwards walking. Try to walk 100 steps backwards today, if you can. I would love to hear how you feel about it, you know, for sure. All right, another 30 seconds. All right, so that's it. All right, guys, I'm going to go. Happy Mother's Day to all the gals out there, all the moms. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you tuning in. Thanks, Brian, again for showing up. Gene, all the Krill, all the regulars, JC, James, Harriet, you know, all, it's really Sunshine, Jamil. I really appreciate it. Let's see, did I miss one from Gene? Okay, I think Gene's got another question. Gene said, miss you today. Was at mom's, but I will see you. And I agree. Sounds great, Gene. I really appreciate it. Okay, so take care, everyone, and have a wonderful Mother's Day. Take care. Thanks again.